Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Nice to see you again. So I got out of the office today, and we've got some great conditions. They got some thunderstorms coming through. It's about 70 degrees. I think up here it's about 60 degrees. And overcast, perfect light. We had a rainstorm coming in. I dried off, but it could rain again, but that's okay. I mean, where I live here in Northeast Oregon, starting usually about July, so coming up pretty soon here, and usually starting a couple of weeks ago, actually, mid-June, the weather just gets hot and dry and clear blue skies and not a cloud in the sky for months, literally. And really tough photography conditions. But today I had to get out because this is great light. And one of the reasons why there's so many photographers in England, I think, is because they complain about that cloudy gray weather all the time, but it's atmospheric and it lends itself to great landscape photography. Clear blue skies is a tough one. When I lived in the western side of the state, back when it was livable here in Oregon, the weather was great. I mean, it was always kind of cloudy. It was like this, a little colder actually, but it was like this most of the time, and it was wonderful. And it was great conditions for photography. So anyway, today I'd like to talk about why I think after 6 months of use, the X-T5 is the best camera that someone could buy for landscape photography. I'm not talking about the best Fuji camera, and I'm not talking about the best APS-C camera. I'm talking about the best camera of all of them. It's just my opinion. But I've been using this camera for over 6 months now, and what prompted this video is I've been going through my images for 2023 for my folio box set. And this year it will be a box set. I'm going to go back to the boxes. The folios with the foil stamping were nice, the silver foil stamping, they were nice, but a box set should be a box set. But anyway, so I've got 6 images that I've picked out, and they're all taken with the new 40 megapixel APS-C Fuji sensor in my XH2, which I use for video. The majority of them, I think 5 out of the 6, next week's video is going to be about those images, but I think 4 or 5 out of the 6 are taken with the X-T5. And I've realized that particularly in consideration of the fact that Ian Worth has that video where he's compared the Canon R5, the 42 or 45 megapixel Canon R5 full frame with $10,000 worth of kit, the best Canon R lenses. And you can watch the video, it's up on Ian Worth's channel. And his conclusion was, is a 6 of one, a half dozen of another. I mean, the image quality was about equal. Now, if it was just Ian Worth, that's one thing, or if it was just me, that's another thing. But I've compared the Fuji X-T5 and XH2 40 megapixel sensor against the Nikon Z7 II. Direct comparisons, because I owned both, you know, for March, April, May of this year, I had the Z7 II again. And I came away with the same thing. There was nothing in it. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another, particularly, and this I think is the common denominator between me and Ian Worth, using the DxO demosaicing raw processing. So if you can extract the most out of the X-Trans sensor, it is equivalent to the full frame output from the 45 megapixel high resolution full frame cameras. So someone said, well, why have as good as when you can have a Z7 II or a Canon R5? Well, the answer to that is the X-T5 is smaller, lighter, and less expensive, which makes it better. So it's raining a little bit, so I had to put my X-T5 away just because there's no point in getting it wet if I don't need to, right? I'm sure it could handle it. If I was taking photographs, that would be fine, but there's no point just having it sitting out in the rain, right? So image quality is the first thing. If you're getting Canon R5 or Nikon Z7 II levels of image quality in your images, and it's smaller, lighter, and less expensive, like, that's a no-brainer, right? Which leads me to the next thing that I've already mentioned, and I'm going to lump all three of them together, although there are three attributes: size, weight, and cost. Okay, you can get a Fuji X-T5 and a Fuji X-H2 for the same, for $300 US dollars less expensive than one Nikon Z8 body. Okay, so that's a significant savings right there. And the Fuji X-T5 is 1 pound and the Nikon Z8 is 2 pounds in terms of weight. So it's half the weight of a Nikon Z8. And then the size, the Fuji X-T5 is one of the smallest cameras that you could buy that's going to give you Nikon Z7 II, Nikon Z8, or Canon R5 image quality. So size, weight, and cost are huge factors in this. For the amount of image quality and for the performance, there is no camera that's lighter, less expensive, or smaller that I've used or that I've seen in the marketplace. Then there's the three-way tilting screen, which is the perfect operation for a screen that you're going to use as a landscape stills camera, because it plays nice with L brackets. And that's very important. You've got to have an L bracket, particularly with my tripod setup. Without an L bracket, I can't do a vertical. So the three-way tilt screen, where it tilts away this way and then it also tilts out that way, is the best screen for stills photography, okay? The fully articulated screen, like on the X-H2 and X-H2S, is great for video, not so great for stills photography. And then there's the really great ergonomics. The Fuji X-T5 is a mature product. This is the 5th generation, and Fuji is a camera company that actually listens to their users, the photographers, and makes changes. You can tell that there's been a photographer using these cameras because the changes over time have made the cameras supremely usable, supremely customizable. The 7 custom functions for video and for stills photography that are software based in the X-T5 are just the best implementation of that I've used in any camera. I use them all the time. And you know, with the X-T5, I changed the button layout of the Q button and the AE lock button because I like to do that. Because I prefer the Q button to be where they put the AE lock button. I prefer the AE lock button to be where the Q button is, like it is on the X-H2. So, but I can do that. I would change, if I were going to change things, customize the camera, I would do it organically. That's my recommendation if somebody gets this camera, because it's overwhelming the amount of choices there are for customization. Do it organically in the sense that when you're out shooting with it and you say to yourself, oh, I wish it did it this way, write that down, go home, change it one at a time, get used to it. Don't change everything all at once. You won't know where anything is. That's my that's my recommendation. But overall, the camera's laid out pretty good just the way it comes out of the box. So really great ergonomics. I run it with the small rig wood grip L bracket. I like that a lot. Do I really need the grip? No, not really, but it's nice to have. The camera's fine just the way it is. The L bracket comes with the grip. It's a nice bracket, and so that's the way I run it. But the ergonomics of the X-T5 are perfect for the size that it is. It's the right size. It's not too big. It's not too small. Just perfect. It's the Goldilocks camera. The AF on button works in manual focus mode, and I do that all the time. With the button in the front, you just switch it to manual focus. You hit the AF on, put the little box where you want it, hit the AF on button, your focus is locked. Works a treat. You can move the focus anywhere you want if you want a focus stack, although one of the advantages of APS-C is I find that you can shoot at f11, f8, f11, and your depth of field is sufficient. I rarely have to focus stack like I would with a full frame. Big advantage. Also, the dynamic range is so great that for most scenes I don't have to bracket. I can pull in the shadows of the highlights. I've been bracketing lately, and all the shots that I've been bracketing, one shot got it. So it's, you know, the dynamic range is fantastic. The depth of field is fantastic on the APS-C sensor. It's just overall fantastic the way the camera works, and And so focus bracketing is not as much of a thing. And then there's the great XF lenses, right? So I use the 10-24, the 16-55, and the 70-300. And they're all weather resistant, which on a day like today is a great thing. So the 10-24 has mixed reviews. I get that. People say it's no good on the 40 megapixels. The copy I have is fine. So I believe there is maybe some sample variation in those lenses. The copy I have, I tested it. I wanted to make sure I was confident in it on the 40 megapixel sensor, and I am, and it works great. I did switch from the 18-55, although I still use the 18-55, but only when I really want to save the weight, to the 16-55, because my 18-55, if I crop the images to 4:5 crop and get rid of the corners and the edges, it's sharp. It's the corners and the edges that are not so sharp, even at f8, even in the middle of the zoom range. Not so great. My 16-55, only wide open at 16 or 55 are the extreme corners. Do they get a little soft? And I'm talking about, like, if I do a 1% crop, I don't have a problem. And so that's fantastic. I think that's a spectacular lens. At f5.6, it's perfect throughout the whole zoom range. There's very few shots where if I were shooting at 2.8 wide open at 16 millimeter or 55 millimeter where the corners would be a problem at all. And if I did a 1 or 2% crop, the issue goes away. So I consider that extremely great performance. So, and then the 70-300 has been spectacular. I've gotten a few of my portfolio images from this year from that lens. It is just perfectly sharp and a fantastic lens. So the XF lens lineup I would put out there as another great reason. And they don't break the bank. And again, there's the size and weight thing back again. The 70-300 is equivalent to a 100-450 millimeter full frame lens, and the 100-400 Nikon lens is $2,600. The Fuji is $800. The Fuji weighs 1 pound, the Nikon weighs 3 pounds, and the Canon's the same as the Nikon, right? So you just can't get away from the full frame physics of the whole deal. So there is that. And then the X-T5 and all the Fuji cameras, X-H2, all the Sony cameras, all the Canon cameras, as far as I know, don't crop the RAWs when you go to a 1:1 aspect ratio or a 4:5 aspect ratio or whatever. So that's a great thing. The Nikons do. It's really a pain in the butt. Also the number of crop aspect ratios you get with the X-T5 and the 40 megapixel Fuji sensor is great. You get 1:1, 4:5, 3:4, 16:9, 2:3, great choices there. So that's another fantastic thing. And yeah, so I think the Fuji X-T5 is the best landscape photography camera choice that someone could make for stills photography. It does a great job at B-roll video as well if you're behind the camera. Not so good for what I'm doing here where I'm all alone and I'm talking to the camera and I need to see what my framing is. That's why I have an X-H2, which makes a great video camera, a great hybrid camera. It's my backup camera for my Fuji X-T5 for stills in case something should happen to my X-T5. Same sensor, same performance, fantastic. So like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and we'll see you out here. Dress appropriately. Have a great one. Bye.